Marguerite Willis is a candidate for governor of South Carolina. I speak exclusively with Marguerite for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores.
Well, Marguerite Willis, it's so good to see you.
Quintin, it's wonderful to put a face with a name other than over the Twitter feed.
That's right. It's so good to see you.
Thank you.
Gosh, there's so many issues going on right now.
Oh my goodness. Where do we start?
Where do you begin?
Well, I begin with the fact that I think South Carolina needs to change its mind and change its direction and change its heart. We can go in any direction there, but I think that it's time for us to have a change of leadership and a change of focus, because I think for too long the same old has been occurring here. The same folks have been doing the same thing year after year, and we have problems, big problems we need to attack, and we need to analyze, and we need to take action. And that's the change of direction I think we need, and the change of mind I think we need. But the change of heart, which is what really drives me, is the change of heart so that we treat all of our citizens, every South Carolinian, as a person of dignity and respect.
Let me go back to what you just said.
Okay.
You say that there needs to be a change in focus in leadership in Columbia.
Correct.
What is your focus?
My focus is to have an opportunity to stand up, to step out as a leader, and to say what needs to be said, and to move people in the direction that I think this state needs to move. And when I say that, I grew up in Greenville, and I know you know Greenville. Greenville's booming, doing
Yes.
great.
Right.
But for the last 18 years, since I married my husband, who at the time was the mayor of Florence, I've lived in the PD.
Yes.
And I know that we have great poverty in this state, something that you don't know as much about if you live in Greenville necessarily. There are pockets of poverty in the upstate, but if you live in the PD, you have people who are hungry, need housing, people who are sick, who need care. And I think for too long, we haven't focused as intently on those problems as we need to focus. For example, my neighboring county is Marion County.
Right.
There are people there who really need jobs, people there who really need help, and the schools, of course, are part of the corridor of shame and need a lot of attention. We need to focus like a laser on those areas, because I like to quote Dr. King, who said, "We may have come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now." South Carolina is our boat. It belongs to all of us. And if we have holes in it that we need to repair, we need to work on those. And I think that that helps everyone. And just to add,
Go for it.
I believe that we're all people of good hearts. I think that we have to talk about these problems and face them as a unified group of South Carolinians who all care about our state. And I think that shining light on issues with regard to children and seniors. Everyone has a child somewhere in their life, or has. Everyone has a senior in their life, or had. And we all care about those problems when they're our personal problems. And I think if we talk about them as a state, if we look at them as a state, we'll all care more about things we need to care about.
And you talked to me earlier about off camera about how money should be pumped into some of these schools.
Yes, well, I'm all about the money, as I like to say, meaning that the number one job of the governor
Okay.
is economic development. The schools really are not run by the governor, but what the governor can do is talk about schools and the importance of them, but also work like whatever farm animal you want to say. You know, a dog, work as hard as a beaver or whatever, to make sure that counties like Marion that need extra help, that need better jobs, let's put all of our resources and let's be creative about what we can do there where the jobs are needed. Now, we all know we're in Charleston today. There's a great Boeing here, Volvo's moving up the road. There's a lot of great industry that's come and is coming to this area of the state. But over in our area, in the PD,
Right.
it's not as I call it geographically blessed as here. We don't have a port. We don't have an interstate of any sort. It's parts of the PD. And this is just an example, because there are other parts of the state that are as disadvantaged as some of the agricultural areas of the PD. So we have to be creative and smart about what kinds of businesses we'll bring there. But we have creative and smart people in this state, because once we bring the businesses there, then we increase the revenue and the tax base and property values, and we have more money to fund our schools. So somebody says to me, Well, what you gonna do? You know, what you got in mind? I don't have all the answers yet, but I have the energy to address these issues. I've spent my whole life, my career, and I'm a lawyer,
Right.
big business lawyer, solving complicated economic problems. I am the one with the skill set to do this, and to do it on a schedule, because too often we just see the legislature's about to end their current term.
Right.
Well, how many things didn't get addressed this year? How many things got shoved aside? Solar power, we thought we were going to get that, not going to be passed this year, and that means it starts all over
Right.
next session. There's so many of these things that just, as I say, get kicked down the road. Well, we can't let that happen, for example, in our poorer areas, because there are children there, Quintin. They're little boys and girls who have that spark of hope in their eyes, the little kids.
Right.
And if you don't help them when they're 4 or 5, they're lost by the time they're 10 or 12. The spark of hope is gone, the spark of energy and excitement about life, because they are living in poverty. And when you live in poverty, you realistically look ahead and say, what's in it for me? And they lose that childlike love and excitement. I don't want to see that happen anymore. And so I want to do what I can as soon as I can about that.
What letter grade would you give the South Carolina legislature right now? Considering all these issues, offshore drilling, you just said the solar power bill, where's that letter grade in your mind?
You mean like I'm the principal grading on my
You
report
can do
card?
that.
I give them a D. I give them a D because they at least have attendance. So you get something for showing up. But I don't think they've done much good work this year. Now, they're not finished, and they're struggling with the budget. Let's see how the budget looks, because we know that our teachers are underpaid. Let's see if they help with the teachers. Let's see where the money is allocated and for what. That's very important, because, you know, people vote with their pocketbooks or with their bank account or whatever you want to say. Where you put your money tells you where a state's priorities are. So let's see what they end up with. I mean, for example, we know Governor McMaster vetoed a bill that would have helped our aging school buses. He vetoed the school bus expenditure. Well, that got passed, but it indicates that I don't know why Governor McMaster has no heart for school children. I don't know why he didn't want there to be, you know, better school buses. We have a decrepit fleet. But again, the point that I'm making is that where you put your money tells you what your priorities are.
Where is Governor McMaster's heart in your mind?
You know, Henry McMaster was the Attorney General, and I knew him pleasantly in that role. He always struck me as a nice enough man. You know, he was always courteous and polite to me, and I never had any problem dealing with him or his office. I think there are some good public servants in the Attorney General's office. But he seems to have changed, don't you think, since he became governor, particularly since he sided so concretely with Donald Trump. It seems that he has moved from a person who was genial and a nice man to calling, for example, recently the children who walked out of school for 17 minutes after the Parkland massacre. He's called those children shameful, and he said that their activities were generated by a left-wing conspiracy. I don't think Henry McMaster would know a left-wing conspiracy if he ran into him. So I don't know where that's coming from. So I'm confused a bit about where Governor McMaster changed his heart.
I got a couple of questions, okay? I know yesterday he was at the State House and he basically says, hey, I'm willing to send our national troops down to the border to help Donald Trump with his plan about building a wall. Where are you with this discussion?
Well, my running mate, Senator Scott, John Scott,
Right.
is a high-ranking National Guard
Right.
volunteer, and he knows a lot more about this than I do.
Okay.
So maybe we should ask Senator Scott.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I've chosen him as my running mate. We're complementary. We have complementary skill sets. But I would say this. I wonder why, where clearly the crossings into the United States have gone down recently, why it is that we should send our folks, volunteer to send our folks to an area where there doesn't, to me, appear to be any real emergency. Now, we know that prior presidents have called out the Guard from time to time, But I don't see any reason that McMaster should want to call out the guard here except to say more or less, hey, Donald Trump, I'm over here, I'm trying to help. Because he wants President Trump's support and help in the election, Quintin. I think that's kind of obvious.
You talk about President Donald Trump. Your particular YouTube video made a lot of headlines last week.
Yes, it did.
You said this quote, "There is no doubt in my mind that Donald Trump is a racist. He's a horrible racist. He's the worst kind of racist, which is a racist who pretends he isn't a racist. How can we elect someone who says such horrible things about women? How can we elect anybody who says that once they got into power, they could take advantage of women, sexually and otherwise?" Okay.
I also call him a sexist. You left that out.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get to that. But what in your mind says that he's a racist?
Well, you mean the specifics of Donald Trump and being a racist?
Yeah.
Well, there are many events and actions that tell me that he's a racist, and that's my opinion. First, way back in the day, you remember that when he was renting out apartment buildings, the Department of Justice sued him and said, "You're not renting to African American people and people of color." The Department of Justice sued him. He called a federal judge in the Trump University case unable to render a fair decision because he was of Mexican descent. Even our own Senator Lindsey Graham, with whom I don't always agree, said that was terrible and wrong. Paul Ryan called it out as racist conduct. More recently, in connection with the Charlottesville terrible event, you remember that, where the woman was hit by the car?
Sure.
He called white supremacists good people. He has also taken other actions with regard to immigration. Remember when he called some countries S-hole countries and said we didn't want people from there, we wanted them from more places like Norway. So there's a whole litany of things that he's done and said that tell me that he's a racist.
Okay, a lot of people are thinking Donald Trump's not running for governor, it's Henry McMaster. As a matter of fact, McMaster's campaign responded to you. They said this quote, "This disgusting and false attack on President Trump is emblematic of everything that is wrong with the Democratic Party today. Like Governor McMaster, the president is focused on cutting out taxes, growing good-paying jobs, and stopping sanctuary cities, and the governor's proud to have his endorsement. So why are you not focused on that?"
On what?
Taxes, good-paying jobs, sanctuary cities, and the president.
Well, first of all, who said I'm not focused on taxes or good-paying jobs? I certainly am. We don't have any sanctuary cities, so that's just a made-up problem around here in South Carolina. That's just one of those kind of straw men that people set up to knock over. That's not even an issue. I am focused on good-paying jobs. I just said a minute ago, I think, and if I didn't, I'll say it now, that the number one job of the governor is economic development. I have great ties across this country and across this world in the business community. That will be my number one job. I said before, I think, that I'm going to focus those actions, not only bringing in the big companies, the great companies like the Boeings and the Volvos and the Michelins and everyone else, but also on types of industry that will help in areas where we're poverty-stricken, because the big companies have not wanted to go there for various reasons. But that's what I'm going to do, because remember, if we eliminate or reduce poverty, it helps everyone. It helps all of the tax base. We don't have to take away, say, from the children in Greenville and give it to the children in Marion. If you help them get jobs, if you develop the economic base in Marion County, that helps the children there. And that's what's important, because taking money from one place and allocating it somewhere else oftentimes doesn't work. You have to build what you need where the need is. So I am talking about that. Second, I'm not a tax and spender.
Okay.
I'm not a tax and spender. I believe in, I do think we need to reform our tax code. I think we need a fairer, flatter tax across a number of bases. We have a lot of exceptions to our tax code. That's a whole nother interview. Tax, maybe not 101, maybe 304. But it's very complicated tax code that's been built over the years by legislative deal making.
Okay.
And so we need to do that. But I'm not advocating for higher taxes.
Okay.
They just say that because they don't have anything else to say, because in fact, Saying Donald Trump is a racist is the truth. Over 50% of just the white people in this country believe he's a racist. And I don't know what the figures are for people of color, but I've got to believe it's higher.
Okay, you talk about figures. He won the state by 15 points. How many points do you think you're going to win as governor?
What's my margin of victory going to be?
Exactly.
It's going to be enough, Quintin. You know, I may win by a vote, I may win by a landslide, but I'm going to win. I'm going to win because I think it's time for a woman.
Okay.
A woman who is outspoken, who is determined, who has nothing to gain by this. I'm not someone who's been in politics her whole life. I'm not looking for another job. I'm looking to perform a service for the state I love.
And you talk about not being a politician, and obviously you're from Greenville, but you live in the PD region now. Who is Marguerite Willis beyond politics now and an attorney?
Marguerite Willis is a woman who grew up as a smart little girl in Greenville, who skipped a grade and was bullied a little bit in school because I had a birthmark on my face, and kids used to bully me a bit. But I didn't let it stop me, and my parents were great. I had a wonderful family life. I went off to school and was successful. I was one of the first women to really get into the practice of law in a real way. I'm not a pioneer like a Sandra Day O'Connor or someone else, but I was in that leading edge of the wedge, as I call it, women who went into the practice of law. I've broken a lot of glass ceilings. I've tried to keep the door open and the path clear for the women behind me. I've been president of the Women's Bar Association's District of Columbia.
Right.
I came back home when I married Frank,
Right.
president of the Women's Lawyers of South Carolina. I've been on the State Chamber of Commerce. I've been on the Board of Trustees at Columbia College.
Right.
I have founded a community foundation in the PD. I was one of the founders of that. I founded Women in Philanthropy. I think I've done a lot of good. I've tried to live my life to do good. And I just think it's a moment for me to step forward and say, we have big problems. We need to look ahead. We need to plan for health care in the future, for things that are coming, perhaps reductions from the federal government in some of our programs. And no one's looking forward and making those plans. That's what I've done my whole career, is to not only work in the immediate and the small and the micro problems to solve those problems, but to plan for the future. And I don't see people planning for the future. You know, we plan all the time for a hurricane. You know, the weather people stand in front of the green screen, they say, over here on the west coast of Africa, so I see a little disturbance. And if it comes this way and the water's right and the wind is right and the temperature's right, it's going to be a hurricane and it's going to hit Beaufort. Right? You've seen that. We've seen the weather people.
Right.
So I stand in front of that screen today. I said, over here, I see a problem. I see a problem because we're getting older here in this state. We have more people who need health care. Federal government's saying they're going to cut entitlements. Entitlements mean Medicaid, Medicare, food programs like SNAP. This is a problem for us. And if we don't start planning for it like we plan for a hurricane, we're going to be caught short. And caught short in a way that's going to hurt every South Carolinian and every family.
Describe to me the following one word: offshore drilling,
No.
affordable housing,
Yes.
June 12th.
Victory.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Marguerite Willis, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you, Quintin. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.